Banned groupies that had sex with their idols. How did it affect the way you saw them afterwards? Not exactly what you asked for, but a friend of a friend slept with Calvin Harris and later got a dick pic. Dude is huge. And we found out which account belongs to Calvin Harris. A friend of mine had sex with Christopher Mintz-Plasse. A.K.A. McCloven. I knew a guy who claims to have gone to the same high school as him. He said he came to school telling everyone he was going to be in a big movie and they were like yeah okay, and then Superbad came out LMAO. Matt Heafy from Trivium shook my hand for like 2 minutes straight while thanking me for my military service. Then noticed I had his band's logo tattooed on my chest. And pulled my tank top to the side to see it better. He saw my nipple. I'm a guy. I still think about it. I have been told by a girl who knows that Leo DiCaprio wears headphones when he groupies. I can't imagine it makes a girl feel very good about herself afterwards. Almost positive if you're a celeb on Reddit you definitely clicked on this post. I know I did. Phew. Nobody's had sex with me. A chick I dated in high school later dated the drummer from Offspring. Here's the good part. She didn't even know who Offspring was. Not a band. But an old co-worker of mine did it with Shel Silverstein. She used to work as a bank teller and he used to come in to deposit his royalty checks. And walk home with his guitar slung over his back. One day after work she saw him walking in the rain, so she gave him a ride back to his houseboat. Whereupon one thing led to another. She said the sex was terrible and he let out this high-keening yell at the end. Which really embarrassed her because she knew the neighbors could hear him. Not much of story. But it's like the closest thing to me actually meeting a celebrity. Oh. And I saw Bob Dole in an airport once. Not sex. But my mum was kissed by David Bowie at a concert in the UK in the 70s. When he left, everyone in the crowd started trying to kiss her. Because his lips had just been on hers. She said it was a very sweet kiss. Not me. But a friend of mine banged Vil Valo at him. She went to the tour bus crowd and waited for him to get out of the venue. And as he was walking up, she goes, "Vil. Me. I'm 18. He gave her a look. Like the thought was crossing his mind. And then he shook his head and got on the bus. Well. Fast forward 2 years later. Same friend tries the same stunt to him. He recognized her as the 18-year-old. And. Well. She still has his number. Girl on my dorm floor uni got herpes from Steve Aoki. I now think that Steve Aoki has herpes and I didn't before. A friend of mine blew Ludacris. Her and 3 others saw him on the street and hollered at him. They went back to his hotel and he and my friend went into the bedroom and they performed oral on each other. While they waited in the other room for them to finish. Firstly, I've never been a groupie nor done it with celebrities, but I did security work for some concerts a while back. One I remember fondly was when me and a couple other security guys were guarding CeeLo Green's bus. So while we see him go in with a bunch of groupies in some revealing clothing. So the other guys start pointing that out. Making crude jokes about CeeLo getting some action. 5 minutes later the gals come out of the bus with puppies. No joke. They literally came out with puppies and went back to the venue. My wife's grandma was a groupie for a traveling Sioux band. She won't tell us anything about the guy. But he got her pregnant and that is how my father-in-law was conceived. A groupie for a traveling Sioux band. This is the most old lady story ever. Edit. Of everything I've ever posted on Reddit. This gets 6,000 plus upvotes. I know are 2 different girls who ate Tisto regularly. He would fly them out to Vegas and Miami on rotation. Guy was in his 40s. Flying out 18-20-year-olds. They liked traveling and he would fly their friends out too, so they had company. One of them didn't really see him as an idol. More as a free vacation every so often. Oh. She paid for it. I found out recently that while my mother was a cocktail waitress in Vegas, she slept with Chris from NSYNC. From what I understand though, he was super nice and even left a voicemail on her phone for myself and my younger brother since we were huge fans and had just seen them the night before. So your mom told you a cocktail? I have a few friends who caught herpes this way. They all said it was worth it. Ah yes. Herpes. The perpetual autograph. My sister's friend Ed Steve Aoki in college. She said she remembers his long hair tickling her chest while he was on top of her LMAO. My ex-girlfriend's friend slept with Yandel, Puerto Rican singer, right after a local performance. Ex said right after the show he just pointed to her friend to come inside the bus from where they were standing. And she walked right in without even thinking twice. Ex waited for about 15-20 minutes before she came out smiling from ear to ear detailing how it went. Weird. But at least she wasn't underaged. So there's that. I knew a girl that slept with Pitbull probably 10 years ago. She said he never took his shades off. Even when they had sex. A girl I know banged Aaron Carter after a meet and greet. He is going through a tough time and I don't think they have met since, but I believe they still text sometimes. She still thinks he's great. It fulfilled her childhood dream to meet him and sleep with him. I know a guy who had sex with Eartha Kitt in an airplane bathroom. I had a friend that was singled out after a Prince concert by his security. They told her that Prince would like her company at his hotel. She grabs one of our other friends to go with her. Maybe as backup or maybe as a witness to the amazing things that are about to happen. Turns out when she gets to the room where all the security and crew are, Prince had no intention of hanging out with her, and then it became obvious that it was the security guard that liked her. She's super bummed. Best part about it was the friend she brought along ended up sleeping with the security guard. A lady friend of mine from Minneapolis ran into Prince in about 88 or 89. She was at a mall in a ladies' clothing store and she looks up from the circular rack to see Prince standing on the other side. Without thinking, she says, "Damn. You are short." He said, "Shut up, bitch," and walked away. A friend of mine had sex with Lil Pump. He gave her chlamydia. Edit. Shocking from a dude called Lil Pump. I know a gal who claimed to have had sex with Stevie Ray Vaughan. Afterwards she was kinda disappointed that he wasn't grateful cause he was so homely that he should have appreciated a pretty girl's attentions. No. You're thinking of Stevie Ray Vaughan. My mate's girlfriend had sex with Justin Bieber while he was on tour in New Zealand. Justin's minders confiscated her phone before anything went down. My friend then broke up with her. A friend's mum told me in the early 2000s she slept with the lead singer of a band she loved in the 80s when she was a teenager. She never specified the band, but she was big into hair metal, so it's gonna be someone like Rat or Poison. She said she was expecting a wild night, but what she got was an intensely passionate lovemaking session followed by hours of philosophical talk. Lead singer man spoke of how excess became boring in the 80s. That once you can have anything you lose interest in it. He said he was well aware that the band were barely living off past successes in a genre that was seen as uncool, pre-Steel Panther revival at this time. Friend's mum said she can't see him as the hyper-cool SZA frontman anymore. That she knows him as a human being and his dreams and fears and experiences. She also says every now and then she wonders if he was like that with every girl. Or just her. Had a friend who went to a concert way back in the day with her friend Jessa. She was sending me pics the whole time and they said they fangirled so hard and made it backstage. Jessa ended up marrying. Then divorcing. And apparently he had to file a restraining order against her. I never heard of this guy until your post. Info from Wikipedia. It was not me, but within my sphere a girl hooked up with John Mayer like 10 years ago and he hit on her afterwards. I bet Mayer doesn't even have a kink. My friend's restaurant gets celebrities and athletes and such often, and Bieber has been known to come in a few times. One of the hostess girls went back to his hotel with him and said she was very disappointed. "Girl, we need details." He cried and said he misses Selena. I have never had sex with a celebrity, but my dad's cousin, my second cousin, was apparently impregnated by Charles Manson. Meaning my second cousin once removed is Charles Manson's son. I'm excited to share this in another thread someday where it won't get buried. My ex-girlfriend and her friend ran into Chief Keef and YG in LA before we dated. She said YG was hitting on her, but he was just unbearably stupid. They invited them over, but my ex didn't go. Her friend ended up going and slept with Chief Keef. She was on top of him and yelled, "Oh my god. I can't believe I mind Chief Keef." He just puts his hand over her mouth and calmly says, "Shut up ho." Some girl from my high school Ed Drake. But sadly I got no details on that. Your ex said YG. A friend of a friend who was obsessed with Tim Burton. So she sent him a picture of herself naked, along with her address. An arrangement was made. Burton showed up, calling himself her dream lover and saying that none of this was really happening. They had sex. And he kept up the charade of not really being there all the way until he left. Her obsession was cured. My sister screwed Tim Lambesis of Azale, dying maybe about 8 years ago when they came to Australia. I think he ended up really liking her and would send her messages on Facebook all the time. A little while later and a friend sent us an article that he was getting thrown in jail for attempted murder of his wife. Yes, he was married with kids when they boned, and yes, he is supposedly a devout Christian. She felt partially responsible for a little while, but I think he probably slept with girls everywhere he went. The girl I lost my virginity to, Ed, the lead singer of LMFAO, for some coke. She said she just wanted some coke. Edit. I forgot to mention we were both 15. LMFAO. Lead singer. I know a girl who hooked up with a member of Big Time Rush. Friend of mine had sex with Redfoo from LMFAO. He played his own music during and sang along to I'm in Miami bitch while inside her, changing the lyrics to I am in your PSSY bitch. SX and a free lyrical masterclass. Sounds like the perfect night. Went to college with a lady that drunkenly slept with Gilbert Godfrey back in '91. During spring break, Betty made the most heinous sound when he cummed. Not a groupie. I'm also a guy. When I was 18 I dated a 17-year-old female singer who was a local celebrity. Her claim to fame was her label sold the rights to a song she wrote and recorded to another female who made it into an international club hit a year later. She also had a hit of her own which was popular in the club scene on the West Coast. Anyways, she liked an L. In fact, she preferred it over vaginal sex. All these years later, and now she's a Christian singer, and whenever I come across her videos on YouTube singing about Christ, I remember how I used her ass until that came out in my 1987 Isuzu Trooper while parked behind Sears back in the day. I do love a good wholesome story. I found that Susan Boyle is still a generous. I partied with Robert Downey Jr. before he got sober. My mother dated the drummer of Metallica when she went to high school with him. Other than that, my grandmother used to own a bar. I guess my mom ended up being a groupie for several bands back in the day, but the only one she confirmed for me is Queensryche. Beyond that, I only heard a few things from my grandma that she'd disappear for a while with a band that showed up at their bar. My grandma unfortunately passed away, and my mother aren't on speaking terms at this time. Well, it certainly ruined Rex Manning Day. I'll tell you that. Not mine, but I love this response from a similar thread. I was in Australia in '06 for a bit of a tour as a stagehand, so not technically a groupie. But still. After a set one night we all got together and passed around a bit of grass. All 4 members had rigorous sex with me, although I was incredibly underage. Oh. How my loins yearn for another night with the Wiggles. A girl I know had sex with G-Eazy after his concert. All she said was that he had a small penis. You know. Well, I play guitar and I jacked off a lot. I had a phase from 2009 to 2012ish where I slept with quite a few band dudes. Warped Tour bands mostly. Some of them were great and we remained friends. Some were assholes who I never spoke to again. I wouldn't say any of them were my idols to begin with. More just my type. So no big impact on the way I saw them. What it did affect was the way I saw myself. After a while I certainly thought I was hot. Famous by association or something. I wasn't very nice. Then I had some real, unrelated, heavy go down in my personal life. And not a single person from the scene was there for me. So I stopped going to shows. Stopped hanging around band guys. And grew the up. Now I've been dating a great man for 5 years. And I'm nice to people again. I knew a girl who sucked Eminem's dick. She said she stuck a finger in his butt and he liked it. It was kinda weird hearing that, as Eminem in his prime was considered to be pretty homophobic. It's a woman sticking a finger up his ass. How is that in any way gay? Even if he was a homophobe back then. He can't tell the difference between a woman or man doing something to him. My friend's older sister had sex with Lil Dicky and told us that his dick was actually huge. I can never listen to his music again. Nice try, Lil Dicky. For reasons I'm not exactly sure of, I've had quite a few relationships with groupies. Not just band groupies, but celebrities and Vegas acts as well. In all cases, they seem to get a kick out of talking about them like they were calling the shots. Oh. It's Brad Pitt texting me. Again, sigh. Dot. Or Rob Thomas, Matchbox 20, is so clingy. Watch out for him. That sort of stuff. A lot of them seem to keep score with each other and see who could sleep with the most celebrities. As mentioned, these are not the sort of people that would be using Reddit. A lot of them seem to have some sort of personality disorder along the narcissism or BPD spectrum. They were all very emotionally shallow and stable people that seem to get their sense of self-worth from using famous people to feel famous themselves. One even broke up with me because she kept referring to herself as a rock star, and I eventually responded with, "Being a plumber doesn't mean you can fix a toilet. Full stop." She did not like that. You know OK Go? The treadmill YouTube guys? I've had none of them. Knew a girl who dated the lead singer of the Mars Volta for some time. Years later, he'd call her drunk and or tripping balls and beg for her back. This isn't exactly answering your question, but it's related. I was in a local band and we had quite a few gigs with national touring bands who we looked up to when they came through our area. I was only a teenager at the time. And I was pretty disgusted to find out that all these older dudes that I thought I respected were such sleazebags. Even guys in their 30s in Christian rock bands. Trying to seduce 16-year-olds. A phrase that I heard more than once. Yeah, get older but your taste in women doesn't. Once I realized a person was a D-bag, I no longer enjoyed their music. And I moved on. That's about it. I used to have this friend who took his fiancée to see Billy Idol. A couple weeks before their wedding day, the chick got backstage and left my friend outside. Next day, she calls from a hotel asking for a ride. We didn't have sex, but a guy in a well-known metalcore band and I used to be really close. It was funny because I had posters of them all over my walls as a teen. He was a bit of a pervert and a massive cokehead. He also had a weird fantasy about being with my cousin and I at the same time. However, on the other hand, he was really nice and funny. Once, after a festival, some drunk girl actually tried to fight me because he was hanging out with me and being tied to her after they'd hooked up. She was annoying and taking pictures of everything and everyone on the bus. The drummer had her kicked off after she passed out in the bathroom. After getting to know the guy, however, it really added depth to him as a human. He's not in the band anymore and I miss him sometimes. But my tears don't fall. Only heard a few stories. But apparently, my boss's GF years ago gave Michael bobblehead on a tour bus after a show. Don't worry about him though. He is happily married, has a little one, and owns a very successful business. Makes for a good laugh. Went out for drinks. And I'm feeling good. My grandmother went on a date with Elvis and she's I'm crazy. One time I was hired to dance for a group of NFL players. I was a huge fan of the team and especially one player who was as a prolific commentator. They proceeded to break my nose, punch me in the ribs, all while gang-upping me and eyeing in my hair. While I begged them to please stop, they liked the power I guess. I've not been a fan of the team since. Nor can I stand the sight of this commentator. When I went to the hospital later that night, said commentator followed me and threatened my life if I told. So I shut up. And now I just tell this said up vague story. Email a journalist at a newspaper in the city where the team plays. Or go to CNN or the Night. The commentator is not actually going to do anything to you once his name is being waved around for this. He would just be facing more criminal charges. You'll be safe if you go very public. I once saw Danny DeVito at SeaWorld. Back in the day I was at a concert where Johnny Craig was performing. Can't remember if it was with Dance Gavin Dance or Emarosa. After the concert a few friends and I were invited to an after party at this guy's house who was good friends with Johnny. We were stoked. I think I was only 16 or 17 at the time and I was getting the chance to party with bands I listened to. Anyways, I get there and it's all the bands that played. And a ton of girls who were most definitely underage. First thing the guys asked me is if I had any Xanax, perks, stuff like that. All those band members walked off to various bedrooms with said underage girls. So yeah, was pretty gross. Did it? Since people were asking, I did some searching and I'm fairly certain it was the tour with DGD, Emarosa, of Mice and Men, Tides of Man, and of Machines. This was in 2009. My friend made out with Jimmy Urine after an MSI show. She said he really did smell like urine. I went on a date with a music artist I liked for years and somehow got in touch with through Twitter. He isn't that famous, but still has quite a lot of fans around the world so he can go and do what he wants. So the day after he came and played on this festival we went to the city to hang out, have a date. Still not sure what it was, and I nearly had sex with him once we were in his hotel. I declined because I wasn't very experienced and kinda intimidated. He is 10 years older than I am, which was pretty big for 19-year-old me. But he kind of became distant and kinda guilt tripping me for not having sex with him. Pushed me for nudes the days after because I'll sigh out them. I can't really listen or enjoy their music anymore. I'm kinda bummed out. Ugh. Guys who use the phrase "you owe me" sex acts should be exiled to the least fun part of Siberia with only Chad Kroger and an acoustic guitar for company. I know someone who dated the lead singer from A Flock of Seagulls. She has a lot of respect for him to this day. Said he was a great man and she's happy that she had him in her life for a time. It didn't work out after a couple years so they parted amicably. Why are so many people on this thread surprised that people in famous bands are cheaters or sleep with underage people? More importantly, why do people generally seem okay and accepting of the underage part, but are so actively crucifying other celebs who have been accused? Shouldn't they also be doing the Me Too thing? My girlfriend cheated on me with a fairly well-known guitarist who grew up in my hometown. From well-known, now retired, rock band. I don't want to say specifically who for few reasons. But let's just say if you listened to alternative or saw pretty much any action movie in the late 90s or early 2000s, you'd know who they were. I can't say how it affected her, but it made me hate both her and the band in question. So there's that. You were Scott Stapp Wiener. Not a groupie SX story but similar. I met an older guy who was a music producer. Said he walked in on Stevie Nicks bent over getting cocaine rubbed on in her arsehole by another member of Fleetwood Mac. He said that he has worked with them before and she had done so much coke through the years her nose was blown out and couldn't really snort it anymore. This is a common urban legend.